Alright, let's get this started. It seems I have to educate another retard on Japanese.
Made a few videos about me, even making one inside of a washing machine apparently, saying a lot of nonsense that I debunked with a simple copy and paste. But no, seriously, go to his channel and read the comments. He's getting absolutely eviscerated in his own.
I wouldn't call that me getting cooked in my own community rather than you just hired a bunch of people to come inside of my comment section and spabble nonsense when none of them are actually willing to debate me.
Community for misleading everybody, and also he made a second account to amp himself and mislead everybody.
Yeah, that doesn't logically follow at all. Your premise is basically he made a second account, therefore he's using it to amp himself. That's not actually the case. The case of me making a second account is so I can do ranting on one thing and to do Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay on another one. The only reason why I didn't upload those to that one is because my thumbnail perms were limited for some reason, so I had to upload them on here. So yeah, try again. I suppose anybody by your logic who has multiple accounts on YouTube, TikTok, whatsoever are using it to amp themselves. Not only that, I specifically told my community that I was making a second account to separate my ranting from gaming, since it will look horrible if I made it on one account. Yeah, but I don't expect nothing more from the dude who says a fictional character is above religion. Not only does he not understand Japanese, he decided to bring all his goons to get in my comment section. Luckily, I had Drip and the other world come and counteract that. So it looks like that we're at war right now, but from it looks like he was losing horribly. Now, before I start this debunk, I'm going to offer you another chance to come debate me. We can do it in a neutral server or we can do it in my server. But of course, you're going to duck and ignore this, just as I expect. But this is why I call you a coward, but right now it's time to educate you on Japanese again.
This is a different statement from the Chozenshu, which is an updated Dragon Ball guidebook, the original being the Daizenshu made in 1995 or so, and this newer updated Chozenshu guide is from 2013.
And this is where you can see that Comic Curator is coping and trying to find any way to get the moral high ground. Because if you were actually experienced, then you would know that the Chozenshu is the Daizenshu, but with a little bit extra, such as different things like including the Dragon Ball GT timeline and explaining the characters of GT. Only that, the Galaxy statement from Daizenshu 7 has the same wording as the statement in Chozenshu 4. So if you're trying to call the Chozenshu unreliable, then you also have to call the Daizenshu unreliable as well.
This is the entry he used in his videos, saying that there's infinite numbers of galaxies in this statement snapshot of what the definition of a galaxy is. It's his argument that this says there's infinite galaxies, but when we go translate this and copy the exact kanji with no changes in the formatting, we see that it says galaxies that exist infinitely, which is the same thing that Daizenshu said in the old guidebook in 1995. The kanji for infinitely existing is the one for aging and not distant.
Alright, since Comic Curator is a child still, I'm going to try to explain this to him in the clearest and most accurate definition possible. Even though I can go on and on of why my translation is more accurate, I'm going to appeal to your translation and show you why that translation confirms our infinite galaxies. This is the kanji that translates to galaxies existing infinitely in outer space. In Japanese, adverbs like mugen ni directly modify verbs. Mugen is an adverb meaning infinitely, and sonzaisuru is a verb meaning to exist. Your premise means that it's in context to the galaxies existing eternally in age. However, this will indirectly be a non sequitur. I know you don't know what a non sequitur is, so I'll educate you right now. A non sequitur is a conclusion that doesn't logically follow from the premise or previous argument. The reason for this is because Japanese distinguishes spatial and quantitative infinity from temporal infinity. For temporal infinity, it will have to have a phrase like ien ni sonzai suru, which actually means existing eternally. But the fact that a phrase like that isn't present inside of the argument, that will mean that there is no indication in the text that is referring to the age and lifespan of the galaxies. And therefore, your claim is a non sequitur. Next up, the sentence explains that the administrative units exist in order to govern galaxies that exist infinitely throughout the cosmic space. The reason why your argument is invalid is because you don't create administrative divisions because things are old. You only create them because there are many or they cover a large area. For example, imagine a library that has books that exist infinitely. Libraries have different catalogs for different quantities of books. You don't create catalogs and organize them because the books are infinitely old. You create it because there's an extremely large number of books, so a system is required to organize them. Different catalogs exist because of volume and not because the books are just extremely old. So it doesn't make any logical sense for the Kaioshin to create administrative units because the galaxies are just infinitely aging. Therefore, galaxies that exist infinitely will be referring to a quantity and not about age. Age does not generate administrative division, but scale and quantity do. Hence, the reason why they divided it into 4 areas is because there are an infinite amount of galaxies. Therefore, it is your burden to prove why they're referring to age and not scaling in distance. And another thing that contradicts your statement is that eternal references time and age. Infinite refers to a quantity of numbers that are not finite. So the fact that it's infinite and not eternal only refers to the quantity of galaxies and not the age of the galaxies. Therefore, it's also your burden to prove why they're using infinite for a term of aging rather than eternal. Therefore, what the chosen entry is referring to are galaxies that exist infinitely in number and not in age. If you want, I can put this into a premise and conclusion argument using modus ponens as the inference rule. But modus ponens is basically if A is true, then B also must be true as well. Premise 1, the statement says about galaxies existing infinitely in the cosmic space. Premise 2, 무제니 functions as an adverb modifying sonzaisuru, describing how galaxies exist. Premise 3, nothing in the phrase has any temporal markers that would indicate it talking about aging eternally. And the fact that 무제니 refers to spatial infinity rather than temporal infinity, it will be referring to a number of galaxies rather than the age of galaxies. Premise 4, you don't divide something because it's infinitely aging. You will put things into catalogs because it's infinite in number. For example, my library analogy that I used earlier. Therefore, it's referring to a spatial infinity rather than a temporal infinity. Premise 5, interpreting it as internal aging will contradict the grammatical structure and the administrative purpose described inside the phrase. So therefore, the chosen entry was stating that galaxies exist in number and not referring to age. So once again, Comic Curator, you failed to prove nothing. Not only did I debunk you on the random lies that you made up about me, you are just proving that you don't know Japanese at all, which is completely fine, but I just have to educate you on what Japanese structure is. In my opinion, I would say stop using ChatGPT for your opinions and actually start studying the Japanese language. Because at some point, you're going to have to learn that using ChatGPT for all your statements isn't going to be helpful and that you're going to have to study the Japanese language just so you can provide for your statements. So I will ask you again, and I know you're going to duck. We can debate in a neutral server, in my server, in DMs, or in your server. It doesn't matter as long as they're recorded by. Because like it or not, I will be recording our argument and send it to the judge so they can give a verdict. Because all you're doing is embarrassing yourself and proving that you do not understand the Japanese language. So I'm just going to offer you another chance to debate. And if you duck, you're just indirectly proving that you are a coward. So Comic Curator, man up and debate me or be a bitch. It doesn't matter. Anyways, that's enough for the video. I hope y'all learned something as well, and I hope y'all see how much of a fool Comic Curator is again, and how much of a fool he made of himself again. Anyways, I will see you guys later in the next one. All right, peace.